AI is going to be a big part of the future. If it's so biased against conservatives, against white people, I think that's something that we should all be paying attention to.
This is the title of a recent New York Times article discussing detransition. Articles like this are intended to instill fear and stoke the political war against gender-affirming care and bodily autonomy.
The whole idea is based in falsehoods.
My question to these people would be, if they can make the decision to cut off their own body parts, would they advocate for those same children to be able to buy alcohol, to sign up for the draft, to go to R-rated movies? Probably the answer would be no. The other day you tweeted this: when you type in "who is Libs of TikTok" to Gemini, it talks about how you promote hate speech and transphobia, how you have a lot of mocking or derogatory commentary. And so with all of these AI platforms coming out, it seems that they're heavily influenced by the people programming them. What's your take, and what do you think about these new AI platforms, especially as it pertains to filtering out content or giving heavily biased commentary on accounts like yours?
Yeah, I think it's really scary because AI is going to be a big part of the future, right? And if it's so biased against conservatives, against white people, against anyone who pretty much doesn't fall in line with all of the leftist viewpoints, then I think that's something that we should all be paying attention to. And I just want to point out also, in this screenshot that I posted, I didn't bold anything. So not just are they biased against me, but they actually were putting in bold these specific lines to even further push the idea that I am transphobic and that I promote hate speech. So it's just another layer of it. And I don't know what the answer is, honestly. I'm not even so familiar with AI. I'm not going to pretend to understand all the all the coding and everything. But if this is it's automated and it has a bias like that, I mean, what does it say about how is it built? Who built these things? How is it built? I think we need to take a good look at that.
Yeah, especially when we're having, I've seen things about them promoting AI use in schools, in middle schools and high schools. And if they're being touted as objective platforms or objective sources of information where they scan the internet, but in reality, people behind the scenes are programming biases into the code, then this could be a real problem for education and be a real problem for students who are using this thinking that it's objective when in reality, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's the future, and it's going to replace a lot of jobs. And it's like you said, it's going to be in schools. Schools are using it, and colleges are using it. A lot of companies are using it, and it's going to end up replacing jobs. And it kind of feels like they're replacing all of those far left actors who are already in their companies and schools, and they're basically just replacing them with a replica, but an automated version, because they hold those same views.
And they're going to be better. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be louder. So this is really scary stuff. I also want to ask you about some of these trans activists. You have a lot of experience talking to these trans activists, debunking their lies or their narratives. And I want to show you this video from a trans activist and get your response.
They were trans. They no longer do. This is the title of a recent New York Times article discussing detransition. Articles like this are intended to instill fear and stoke the political war against gender-affirming care and bodily autonomy. So in light of this, here are 3 things you should know about gender-affirming care. 1. The facts and numbers don't lie. The U.S. Trans Survey from 2022 just began releasing their preliminary results, studying over 92,000 trans people, and 94% of people were more satisfied with their life after transition. But articles like this masquerade transphobia for supposed concern for the well-being of children, manipulating the stories of one, in this case a person named Powell, or sometimes a few. Studies of tens of thousands of trans people have shown that gender-affirming care is highly effective. Subjective well-being increases, decreases of rates of depression and self-harm, decreases of gender dysphoria, and those who detransition, especially children, are fine when they have familial support.
So there's a lot to break down there, but what do you say to this person who says, look at the numbers, it's objective fact that quote unquote gender affirming care is actually beneficial to the people that we say we're trying to protect?
I mean, they'll find any study to skew in their direction, but there are so many other studies. There is one done in Sweden that actually showed that after surgery, these people who get sex change surgeries actually have a higher rate of suicide. And then, I mean, before even getting into all the studies, I think it just takes common sense to know that a kid cannot, anyone actually cannot change their gender. It's impossible. The whole idea is based in falsehoods, but especially a kid. How can a kid make the decision that they want to be the opposite sex and then go get surgery before their brain is even fully developed? And we don't let these kids get tattoos. We don't let them buy cigarettes or alcohol, and we're telling them that they can go get their body parts chopped off.
My question to these people would be, like you said, if they can make the decision to cut off their own body parts, to go under irreversible gender replacement hormones, would they advocate for those same children to be able to buy alcohol, to sign up for the draft, to go to R-rated movies? Probably the answer would be no. And I think the left has really, co-opted the language that they're using by even calling it gender affirming care. When the reality is these children are too young to make these decisions, and it is leading them down a very dangerous path, like lambs to the slaughter, right? They're being told that, the void that, I guess what I see when I talk to these trans people, I went to the Trans Day of Vengeance rally in Hollywood, and I really have a lot of compassion for these people. You can tell when you talk to them, they have voids. They have, I think, a lack of purpose and identity that they're trying to find. And it's very shiny. It looks appealing that these people are going to accept them, that they're going to fill the void that's deep within them. But time and time again, it doesn't seem like that's the case, that they get happier when their body parts are cut off, that void is actually full, that they have a sense of identity and purpose. It seems like they're replacing that void with more emptiness.
I actually really feel bad for them because it's a mental illness, and these people are suffering, and the activists prey on already vulnerable children. They prey on kids. They prey on autistic kids. They prey on kids from like broken homes. They prey on kids who maybe have some kind of disability, and they tell them, if you change your gender, then it will solve all your problems, right? The reason why you're having a hard time, the reason why you're depressed, the reason why you have anxiety, the reason why you have even like an eating disorder, it's because you're in the wrong body. And if you just change your gender, all your problems will be solved. You'll find happiness, you'll find acceptance, you'll find love, and they wave the shiny object in front of them, and that's how they get them to join their cult. And it is a cult. And then these kids join, sometimes from a very young age, a lot of times from their parents, coaching them, and then they're led down a path of just utter destruction. They end up in a surgery room getting their body parts chopped off, and then there's obviously a massive detransition movement, and those people get completely ostracized from the community. So, this community that's all about love and acceptance, it's only love and acceptance as long as you agree with everything they say and go along with all their narratives. But, the second you're like, hey, I chopped off my breast when I was 16 and I'm kind of regretting that because I'm a woman, I want to have children, I'm not going to be able to breastfeed my kids, I don't have breasts anymore, you're an enemy.
The worst part about it is they frame us conservatives as hateful or bigoted, or as we don't have compassion. And the opposite is the case, is we genuinely do feel bad and we want to help them. And it's our side that's saying, you are perfect just the way you are. You don't need to cut off your body parts. You do not need to sell your soul to feel whole and to feel happy again. You don't need to mutilate yourself to feel like you're part of a community. Like, we love you just the way you are. It's the predatory surgeons that are preying on these 15-year-old kids. It's the big pharma industry that is filling them up, pumping them full of these drugs that are altering their minds and their bodies. Those are the real predators, and those are the people that we need to call out, not our side that is saying that we love you just the way you are.
We need to call out the predators, and we need to call out the root problem, which is mental illness, I believe. I think there's a serious mental health crisis in this country, and it is not being addressed properly.